The fog of late November 1940 for WASNT just weather. It was a presence, cold and deliberate, rolling in thick off the Meuse like a slow-moving army of ghosts. It muffled sound, swallowed light, and turned every hedgerow into a potential ambush. Inside the half-ruined Picard farmhouse, once a sturdy Norman dwelling with thick field stone walls and a steeply pitched roof, Corporal Daniel Mercer, 21 years old, last surviving member of the battalion forward command group, felt the chill seep through his sodden wool uniform straight into the marrow of the kitchen. Now the makeshift CP smelled of many things at once. Wet plaster dust, the acrid bite of burned-back elite insulation from the radio, cordite drifting in through the jagged holes where windows used to be, and underneath it all the faint, sweet rot of old apples left forgotten in the cellar since the family fled months earlier. A single kerosene lamp, its wick turned low to avoid giving away position, threw weak orange light across the scarred oak table. Maps lay pinned beneath shell fragments used as paperweights. A half-eaten K-ration tin of pork loaf sat abandoned. Spent point for 5 casings rolled gently whenever Mercer shifted his weight. 3 hours and 17 minutes earlier there had been voices here, urgent, overlapping, human. Captain Hargrove's clipped Midwestern drawl dictating coordinates. Lieutenant Voss arguing about whether to commit the last reserve platoon. The 2 teenage runners, Privates Kowalski and Ruiz, whispering nervous jokes about getting back to Paris for Christmas. Then the war had reached in with both hands. A heavy 88 round detonating 30 meters east, followed by the vicious stutter of 2 potato masher grenades lobbed through the shattered casement. After the ringing silence that follows close explosions, Mercer had crawled out from under the overturned table to find himself alone among the wreckage. He was bleeding from a shallow gash above his left eyebrow and a deeper one along his left forearm where a shard of window glass had sliced through his sleeve. The blood had dried in dark streaks down his face and hand, cracking whenever he moved. He barely noticed. All his attention was fixed on the SCR-300 backpack radio set that squatted on the table like an ugly, faithful dog. The set was dying slowly, resentfully. The long whip antenna, already patched twice with twisted telephone wire and electrical tape, had been sheared off again by shrapnel. The BA-70 batteries, rated for 24 hours of intermittent use, were now on their 3rd day. Every transmission cost precious power. Every failed attempt drained a little more life. Static roared through the headphones like an endless rainstorm on a tin roof. Atmospheric interference from the rolling artillery barrage, thousands of shells fired by both sides. That night turned the ether into a howling wasteland. Mercer kept trying anyway. Red Lion 6. This is Red Lion forward. Over. Nothing. Red Lion 6. Forward. How copy? Over. Only the patient. Grinding hiss. He knew what waited 3 miles northeast. Companies A and B of the 1st Battalion, plus the remnants of the heavy weapons platoon to 187 men by morning report, dug into a shallow, exposed reach flanked by dense woods and sunken farm lanes. Intelligence had been spotty for days, but the pieces Mercer had overheard painted a grim picture. Elements of the 116th Panzer Division slipping through the fog in the dark. Mark IVS and STUGIIIS rumbling on muffled tracks. Panzer grenadiers moving on foot with MP40s and Panzerfaustes, probing for the seam, ready to close the pocket before first light if the trap snapped shut. There would be no heroic last stands, just slaughter in the mud. Men cut down in crossfires. Wounded left screaming in ditches as the fog swallowed the sound. Mercer's fingers numb. Blue-white trembled as he nursed the tuning knob, searching for the ghost of a signal. Every few minutes he stopped breathing entirely. Footsteps on the gravel track outside. A low mutter of German to voices. Perhaps 3 close enough that he could make out the word house and the soft metallic snick of a bolt being worked. He froze. Lips inches from the microphone. Heart hammering so hard he felt it in his teeth. The footsteps paused, lingered, then moved on. Swallowed again by the fog, he exhaled through his nose. Slow and controlled, the way his father had taught him when they hunted deer back in the hills around Chillicothe, Ohio. For a moment the farmhouse seemed impossibly quiet. Then memory ambushed him. Summer evenings on the porch swing. Fireflies rising from the lawn like tiny lanterns. His mother humming Shenandoah while she shelled peas. The porch swing still existed somewhere, creaking in the wind. The house still stood. Life went on there, untouched by this night. The thought was so painful it felt like a physical wound at 20 to 47 hours. After what felt like centuries. A voice then, distant, almost hallucinatory, cracked through the static line. Forward 6 traffic extremely weak. Say again. Mercer's pulse surged. He leaned so close to the lip microphone that his breath fogged the grill. Red Lion 6. This is forward. Flash precedence. Flash. Enemy force maneuvering to envelop the ridge. Grid 784,312 to 791,308. Minimum to company's Panzer Grenadiers. Armor support probable mark IV and STUG. Axis of advance south-southwest along Sunken Road parallel to Farm Track 19. Estimated contact before 0600. Request immediate heavy artillery saturation on pre-registered targets Hotel 3 through Hotel 7. Request emergency disengagement and withdrawal authorization for forward elements. Situation critical. I say again, situation critical. He paused, listening to the carrier wave flutter like a wounded bird. Then, in a voice quieter than protocol, aloud, almost confessional, we ray the last one here. Please hurry. A shell, probably an 88, landed close enough to lift the farmhouse floorboards a full inch. Plaster rained down. The radio screamed feedback, then subsided to a pitiful whisper. The dial light's dim flicker died. The set went silent forever. Mercer stared at the lifeless dials for a long count of 10. Blood dripped from his cheek onto the tabletop, plink, 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 like a clock winding down. He did not move to wipe it away. He thought about running, thought about hiding in the cellar, thought about the .45 pistol still holstered at his hip. In the end he did none of those things. He simply sat, back straight, hands resting on the dead radio as though it might still speak if he waited long enough. Miles away, in the damp stone cellar that served as Division Forward headquarters, a signals sergeant wearing 3 days' growth of beard and a headset made of frayed electrical tape suddenly jerked upright. He replayed the faint, broken transmission twice on the wire recorder, scribbling frantically. Then he carried the spool to the operations tent. It's Mercer, he said. The kid from Ohio. He's alone up there. The colonel, gray-faced, exhausted, studied the wavering pencil trace on the overlay, looked at his watch, looked back at the map. Jesus, he breathed. Then louder. Get me every tube within 20 miles. Flash priority. Saturate those grids. And tell the Ridge companies pull back now. No equipment salvage. No delaying for the wounded who can't move. Just get them out. The barrage began at 2319, rolling thunder that lit the fog from underneath in sickly orange pulses. Under its cover, the men on the ridge rose from their holes like shadows, stumbling rearward through the mud, supporting the wounded, abandoning machine guns and mortars they no longer had ammunition for. By 0 for 30 the ridge was empty. Dawn came pale and reluctant, revealing only churned earth. spent brass, and the fresh cleat-edged tracks of German armor rolling into a pocket that held nothing but echoes. At 091 a patrol from the 29th Infantry Division found the farmhouse. They found Mercer still sitting upright at the table, eyes open, left hand resting on the cold microphone as though ready for the next call. His breathing was shallow, his skin waxy with shock and hypothermia. A medic cut away the soaked sleeve, cleaned the wounds, wrapped him in blankets. Someone else draped a shelter half over the silent radio like a shroud in the decades that followed. Daniel Mercer rarely spoke of that night. When asked, and he was asked many times, by reporters, by historians, by the occasional grateful survivor who tracked him down, he would only shrug, offer a small, tired smile, and say the same for words: "I just kept talking." But on certain November evenings, when fog rolled thick across the fields of Ohio and the smell of wet leaves and distant wood smoke drifted through the screen door, he would sit on the old porch swing and listen to the quiet, and in that quiet he would hear again the hiss of static, the distant rumble of guns, the soft crunch of boots on gravel just beyond the wall, and somewhere in the memories of nearly 300 men who lived to grow old because of one fragile, fading voice in the dark, that night remained alive, proof that courage is not always loud, not always dramatic, not always recognized. Sometimes it is simply one young man, alone in a ruined house, refusing to let the silence win.